You're live.
Good evening, Green brothers and sisters. I'm Gloria Matera, one of the co-chairs of the Green Party of the United States, also co-chair of the Green Party of New York. And I want to thank you for tuning in. Really appreciate people who are available for this. Those of you who can't watch it live, we will have a link available as soon as possible. So tonight we've planned about 90 minutes, maybe a little less, of a candidate forum with the 3 candidates who are running for the steering committee vacancy, which in fact is now in the process of being voted on. Gary Frazier, Dee Murphy, and Tony Ndege. At the moment, we have Tony live. We have sent out a few messages to Dee and to Gary, hoping that they will join us, but we've kept all of you waiting for a little while, so we wanted to get started. This candidate forum is modeled after the candidate forum that was used in the last election, where we had a series of questions. All the candidates had an opportunity to answer. The candidates also get to do an opening statement and a closing. And a lot of the questions had been submitted at some point by NC delegates back for the last election. So without taking any more time, I'm going to offer Tony 2 minutes to do an opening statement. So take it away, Tony.
All righty. Greetings and good day, fellow Greens, fellow delegates. My name is Tony Ndege. I am the current co-chair of the North Carolina Green Party, where we've had lots of exciting successes since I've been organizing with them for several years now. So the reason why, to cut to the chase, since I only got 2 minutes, why you should definitely vote for me as co-chair, pretty simple. Number one, by far the most important issue is experience. I've been party member for several years now. We've had a lot of successes. I've never helped to build another party or electoral organization or candidate in the U.S. besides Greens. So that's something important. These successes include building from one newly functioning regional local to 5. By regional locals, I mean we're going to actually even have more chapters within these regional locals. So we've definitely built up state membership tremendously over the past couple of years. I was also the state volunteer coordinator for the Stein-Baraka campaign when we got tens of thousands of votes. I think 13,000 or close to 13,000 write-in votes. So that's very important because we had to have a cohesive plan to let folks know that if you voted a write-in vote, it would count. So this really helped to get us, lead us to the next level, which is now we will have historic ballot access in North Carolina for the first time for the Green Party, probably by next month. So this, I think, our turnout during the Stein campaign helped that. The other reason I think you should support me is that I actually have a clear strategy. I encourage you to check out my bio on the Green Party link. I will forward it again to listserv. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. And awesome, Dee joined us just a minute into Tony's opening. So I want to welcome Dee Murphy. Dee, are you good with sound? And Michael O'Neill has got you there. I just want to check if everything's okay before we have you speak. You could, can Dee unmute herself?
Yes, Dee can unmute herself. If you hover your mouse over the screen, you'll see a microphone that's red, and click that. Okay, go ahead and talk, Dee. Oh, nope. Now talk.
Hi, everyone. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, great.
Okay. Hi, how are you doing?
Good, good.
So I just found out about this 20 minutes ago because I know that we had discussed it and there was kind of some confusion regarding consensus. So, I've reviewed the questions that you had earlier in the day, and then once we had decided that there wasn't going to be a presentation tonight, I didn't review them again. So I will be, just along with everyone else, learning the questions as we go along.
Okay, well, this is informal, and it's just an opportunity for you to talk to some of the Greens directly. And I'm sorry if you feel it was canceled. We were very clear to say this particular forum was going to continue as long as everybody was going to do it. Michael did send out the information. We had a new link, so I'm glad you have that. So if you're ready, you've got 2 minutes to just do a little introduction of what you want people to know right away about you.
Okay, my name is Dee Murphy. I'm running for the vacancy left by George Martin for the steering committee. I am a single parent. I'm in my 40s. I'm studying in graduate school for social responsibility and a minor in gerontology, a certificate in gerontology. I have an undergraduate degree in leadership and organizational communication, and my minor is applied relational conflict management. I'm a newer member of the Green Party. I've been here a couple years now and have jumped in with both feet. I went from my CD to joining the state coordinating committee, was elected to the state of Minnesota coordinating committee, and have taken on a number of roles and responsibilities that are probably too long to list here, but some of that is in my bio. I've brought a lot to the party, contributed a lot in terms of time, hours, on the ground work. I got appointed as a delegate in, I believe, July of 2017. And I have been jumping in with both feet there as well. I'm now a member of the Black Caucus, the Lavender Caucus, and the Women's Caucus. I'm an active participant in all of them. I don't just claim to be a member. I'm actually working with the caucuses on a different number of matters. I've been appointed to the Eco Action Committee and the Accreditation Committee. The Eco Action Committee was the Black Caucus appointment, and the Eco Action and the Accreditation Committee is from the Women's Caucus, where we are working on getting some accreditation from some of the groups that are applying. And
just
with the
line down, Dee. Thank you.
Thank you.
You can finish your sentence. I just want to give like a 20 seconds so people don't abruptly get cut off.
Okay, thank you. And with the Eco Action Committee, we're working on actually consolidating all of our efforts because there's so many people that are working in so many different areas. I'd like to see us as a committee begin to make more public releases of the work that our various committee members are doing. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, so I'm just going to read the questions. Everybody has 2 minutes to answer. Some are going to be longer than others, so don't feel you have to fill up 2 minutes. And since Tony started out, I'll start with you, Dee. And it's how many hours a month can you realistically dedicate to your role on the steering committee?
As many probably as are needed. Not probably, as many as are needed. I'm currently, like I said, I'm in graduate school. I have an online course right now, and I have one course that I have to physically go to another one. I just need to submit a report on some of the things I'm doing currently. And then I will receive my grade. My work with the state committee is at this point, there's a few things that we're working on, but right now everything is centered around the upcoming endorsing convention next weekend. So beyond that, I will be helping with organizing phone banking parties in order to raise funds from our donors for our committee. But there's not a lot of heavy duty roles there.
Great, thank you. And Tony, same question. How many hours a month can you realistically dedicate to the steering committee?
Sorry, I muted myself. Like Dee said, I generally as many hours as it takes. I'm certainly willing to dedicate at least 100 hours a month during most months or more. While I am a state co-chair, there are a number of very dedicated new members, particularly women, new women members in the North Carolina Green Party. So a lot of them have really stepped up to the plate, and that's really helped to been a tremendous help towards me freeing up a lot of time that I was spending towards restructuring our party. I'm also a member of the Ballot Access Committee, as a Southeastern coordinator. However, hopefully, if we have our ballot access, there'll be several states: Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina, and others that we don't, Florida, that we don't have to worry about so much as that regional coordinator. So as much time as it takes. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Next question is, the Green Party is facing serious financial challenges at this time. What strategies and ideas do you have for increasing fundraising and raising revenue? And I'm going to just flip back and forth and ask Tony to start this one.
Yeah, well, a lot of the problems I see the Green Party having, at least from my experience, involves the lack of a more cohesive national strategy. So we have a lot of folks who are doing some excellent works in these committees, and we have the steering committee and fundraising committee, outreach, media, ballot access, what have you. However, one thing we can do is maybe not every month, but let's say maybe a quarterly, party-wide plenaries, and maybe even have this mini plenaries between some of the committees, and to have this on a better and more well-moderated platform than our current listservs that tend to sometimes veer from the topic at hand. And so a lot of times people don't have the time for endless emails. So I think we should have a better platform for these discussions where we can have these party-wide discussions. I'm totally willing to learn from folks who I don't necessarily see eye to eye on every issue. I've done this with the Stein campaign, and definitely willing to do this with other delegates. So we need to think more far-reaching and creative ways of like continuing, combining fundraising, ballot access, and our media, and increasing our media team to have more, say, citizen journalism and other pieces that could be integrated into fundraising and ballot access. So I think we need to expand our ways of like thinking about how we do fundraising instead of email pitches and more traditional ways that a lot of times people, because of all these emails, don't necessarily get to. So I think that's a very important thing.
Great, thank you. Dee, would you like me to repeat the question, or you?
No, you don't. It's my understanding that, and maybe you can help out as a member of the steering committee. It's my understanding that there is a committee for fundraising, and they were allocated quite a sizable budget this year. So, I mean, whatever is needed to work as a liaison with them in their area would be something that I would have to look into and find out the details of what they're actually working on, and maybe make suggestions accordingly, and along in tandem with agreement with the rest of the steering committee co-chair.
Okay, sorry, you had a little freeze for a minute there. Next question. I'll start with you, Dee. How can we engage volunteers nationally that come to the Green Party?
How can we engage them?
Right. Any thoughts about that?
Manage them?
Yeah, for nationally. You know, a lot of people will come locally and through your states, but we actually we have a large number of people that have just asked through our national office that they'd like to volunteer. Any thoughts about what we might do with those people making requests?
I know that normally right now, the way things work is when people come to volunteer, they're kind of bounced down to the state level, and it's up to the states to coordinate the volunteers. We've been discussing this in my state. We just have approved the extra hours to actually pay for a volunteer coordinator who is going to be the liaison between the different positions and projects and CDs that need help, and what it is that they're trying to offer. So what would I do with them personally? I mean, if there's a suggestion on the board as far as how to better manage that, I would be willing to listen to it and add to it based on what we're doing here.
Great, thank you. Tony, do you need me to repeat the question, or can you jump into it?
I think I can jump into it. Well, there's no shortcut to recruitment and to getting people activated. So there's no sort of a gimmick I've learned over the years as an organizer. So what I'd say is, like I said before, increasing a lot of volunteer journalism would be extremely important. Sometimes people don't have the time to dedicate to something extremely active, but they can report on things happening in their communities. And that's one way to get people involved. Also, sometimes we need to bridge the gap between interest and action. And one way to do it is simply by sitting down and talking the nuts and bolts of why be a Green. There's not enough, I think, sometimes party education in terms of knowing the importance of independence from the other parties and why, and that can lead to folks sort of like not always sticking with the Greens until maybe a major election. So between these major elections and local elections, I think we need to have just sitting down and talking with people, even if it's just one-on-one, and then maybe even if we don't have financing for staff, we can actually maybe have stipends for folks, especially in frontline communities or who have economic issues, to maybe do things like fundraising, phone calling, things like that are more dedicated. And just a little bit can sometimes inspire folks in terms of feeling appreciated by our party, and that will help build our party in return.
Thank you. Okay. Tony, what internal administrative changes do you think could be helpful for the party?
Oh, well, I definitely think that we need to have more discussions on party structure. And I think, like I said before, we need to integrate some of these committees more and have actual group discussions between fundraising and ballot access and outreach and media, especially. So those are some major changes we can make. I definitely also think, let's say if we continue to hire organizers, we also need to have them on the ground, just speaking to folks, not necessarily just Greens, but speaking to folks and getting there in different struggles. We have the ACP pipeline here. We've had West Virginia teacher strike that's made a strike wave, maybe a strike wave across that entire region. So things like that are things that we really can't miss. And I think we need to have our organizers maybe helping to get the word out about our platform. And that's an administrative decision. So those are some of the things I think we can make, the changes we can make, aside from holding more direct discussions that are party-wide, as opposed to having committees that may or may not always be on the same page.
Thank you. So Dee, what internal administrative changes do you think might be helpful for the party?
I believe communication needs to be improved and methods of communication. I think it's highly important that egos and personal agendas do not come into play when we're working for the same mission. I do believe that we need to have respect for one another in order to work together as a team. And we may have different ideologies on how to approach things, but a really good communication system will do wonders towards advancing people on a steering committee, which also spreads to those that they work with and other as liaisons to the various committees.
Great, thank you. And what improvements or change in our current media strategy do you have suggestions for?
As a person who I have spent a lot of time on social media, and one of the things that I notice, I admin a couple of groups, I participate in other groups, I have a couple of pages, and the thing that I have noticed the most when it comes to engagement, people are very attracted to short and simple messages. If we are here winding on and on about, different topics for 45 minutes, no one has time to sit down for 45 minutes to hear the whole message. You have to be one heck of a, golden speaker to have someone take 45 minutes out of their day to listen to what you have to say. So I believe shorter, simpler, more concise messages. I think also highlighting who the Green Party members are. We can do a rotating interview with not just people who are running for office, but everyday people on the ground, like us, that are participating and contributing and telling why we're here, what we're interested, what's drawing us to this platform and 10 key values and pillars of our party.
Great, thank you. Tony, what are your suggestions for improving or changing our media strategy?
Well, like I said, we definitely need more on-the-ground reporting, and also, as Dee said, I absolutely agree with her. We need shorter pieces that come out that reflect where we stand. Right now, I think folks don't know how many issues that we stand on the same side as they do, and people need to understand that we stand on the same side with them. For example, marijuana legalization and decriminalization and the ending the war on drugs. That's something that a lot of folks don't know that we're serious about that. A lot of folks haven't checked out our amazing mass incarceration or incarceration plank platform. So there's a lot of things that people don't know where we stand, and beyond just the core media team, I think we need to have like I said, an army of even if it starts out as a small army of volunteer journalists who can even just get the raw video data, upload that to some folks who can edit, and have a larger team of folks who can edit things, and also creating having more creative means of getting our message across, like even more memes. Sometimes they can get a little edgy, but sometimes you can do something in a way that's very creative and will be very viral and speak to a specific topic and fundraising.
Oh, thank you. Next question is, as an electoral party, how can we improve our ballot access and campaign efforts in the coming years? What might you see as priorities?
Well, like I said, I am a Southeastern Regional Coordinator for the Ballot Access Committee. Being in the state that up until recently had the highest requirements in terms of numbers for ballot access, we had to get over, this year would have been 94,000 approved signatures. So that would mean it would be above and beyond the size of a small city that we'd have to get signatures. Who has time for that? So this is all about pointing out that ballot access restrictions are about money and politics. So I think what we have to do is to have a electoral strategy that begins now and that leads from one year to another. So I think 2019 will be a critical year, not only for getting earlier ballot access, even if a state doesn't make it all the way, just half of the way could save us lots of money, a tremendous amount of money during the campaign, the 2020 presidential campaign year rush. Also, really running our platform and our party message in 2019, almost like a dry run, but like on a lower level. That could work in many states. I know different states have different issues, but that's something that I think we really need to do. Also, I think we definitely need to have more volunteers that are, once we do get to 2020, that are dedicated to the national campaign and aren't divided so much between national elections and their local elections, which is just almost impossible to do at the intensity that's required.
Okay, thank you. And Dee, would you like me to repeat the question, or?
No, absolutely. Your question was, I believe, one of how would I increase ballot access? I'm a big fan of not really overreaching or stepping on other people's toes. I am not on a ballot access committee, and so I can't really direct what they should be doing as far as ballot access. What I can do is communicate with them to find out where they're at and offer suggestions and ideas and work with them, in their specialty area to reach out to those states that need a lot of help. I know I just got off the phone with a delegate that is saying that out of hundreds of members in her area, only 4 people are on the ground working to actually collect ballots so that they can run a candidate. I mean, it's people like that need support, that need help from the national committee. And so we would probably be able to work, as liaisons between, the members of the states that need help and the committee that specializes in that area.
Great, thank you. I see that Gary is calling in. I did text him to ask him to try and join us, so maybe that can happen. we'll continue on and we'll catch him up if he can do that. So, sorry. Who's my next? I guess Dee, I'm starting with you. It's funny to back and forth when there's only two people. So these are kind of more technical. What administrative experience do you have?
Administrative in regard, that's kind of a broad question.
Yes, it is a broad question. Right, it's a broad question.
Right.
So feel free to take it where you want.
Do you mean in terms of administering programs? Do you mean clerically? Do you mean in previous work history?
I guess where you think might relate to doing the kind of day-to-day administering of the party business in terms of your past experiences.
Yeah, early on in life, I started out actually, and I hate to have to say this, but I started out working in corporations. And so my earliest jobs were, I had a job as a treasury assistant for a commodities firm, believe it or not. I had a position as a sales assistant for a couple of firms. Eventually, I wound up leaving that whole business in that whole field due to facing a lot of discrimination and a glass ceiling, and just not really believing in that whole culture and mentality of just sincere, like dog eat dog greed. I'm not a person that, I'm a very peace loving person. I'm not attracted to that. So, you know, my parents encouraged me. They're of that generation. Go into business. You're going to make money. You know, you got to pay for it. You got to have a house. You got to have all these material things. And I did try that route for about, I'd say between the 3 jobs, about 5 years. And finally, from there, I went into academia and began working with people who are working on different programs in colleges and administrative support roles for them. So that's where I learned a lot of my poster making and meeting planning and things like that, the details things. And
just 20 seconds to wrap up.
Sure. And so currently I'm doing a lot of that applying administrative skills learned in the past on a state level. So I'm helping with organizing databases, phone banks, different things surrounding some of the candidates' campaigns, and the rest of that is on my bio. Thank you.
Great, thanks. And Tony, your administrative experience?
Yeah, in terms of my formal administrative experience, it's not a whole lot outside the fact for many years I did work as a special events coordinator and assistant director at in admissions for my alma mater. It's a performing arts and film conservatory. So I did work with a whole lot of student volunteers as well as support staff. So that's the in terms of my formal administrative experience, I would think that's the most important. Although I have worked as a director and assistant director of several theatrical productions, so that does require a lot of administration. Although it's not a long-term thing, you have project to project, and as well as I've been co-chair of North Carolina Green Party and a lead organizer and bottom line organizer for a lot of pretty well-funded events that sometimes would have upwards of hundreds of folks in North Carolina. So on my bio, there's several links to my involvement in some of those events as well. Over.
Okay, thanks. So this is kind of a follow-up question in a way, is how many people have you been responsible for supervising, whether it's paid staff or volunteers, and could you just give a little detail about that?
Well, in terms of paid staff, I've pretty much been responsible for supervising smaller offices, so that's probably less than 12. However, there are a large number of students that would number in several hundreds, as well as an organizer for more than 20 years. I have extensive experience. I've organized anything from small events to events of thousands, even when I was pretty young in college as an anti-war organizer. So as a Mid-Atlantic regional coordinator for the Stein campaign, I had to work with hundreds of volunteers. I had to do a lot of problem solving in some states, some things that folks may have thought that the Stein campaign should have been doing were, I had to work out some of those issues in terms of sign coordination, in terms of looking at early voting and things like that. So there's a lot of things I had to. I've just been coordinating with folks my entire adult life.
Great, thank you. And Dee, the same question for you in terms of people you've supervised, volunteers, paid staff, and some detail about that.
So I'm very careful about the word supervision. I'm not really into control or power. I prefer to say that I work with people. And as far as working with people and training people through the various events that I've organized, participated in, volunteered, and managed, I would say upwards of 100 people. But as far as saying I'm your supervisor, no. I mean, yes, they say, Dee, will you train this person on this? Technically, I'm supervising them, but I'm not in that whole realm where, I'm supervising them. I mean, I've trained in lots of people in a number of different projects that I've worked on, including, we had a thing where I monitored like over 10,000 people in a Buddhist group, and some of the people coming in had to be trained in accordance with a kind of a strict set of standards set up by the group's owner. That's just an example. And the number of people that I trained there were about, I think it came to about 7, but we also had to monitor 10,000 people to ensure that they were meeting the guidelines set forth. So, when you say supervising, I'm not really one to say I'm supervising. I say I work with people.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
I thought maybe Gary might be joining us soon, but still has not done that yet. So we are going to continue and make space for him when he comes. So Dee, what's your experience in terms of budgeting? How large of an operating budget have you been responsible for, been involved with managing?
This is a team effort, I think, on a steering committee. So that's something I think that was a great point of discussion recently. Personally, I have not taken on any budgets by myself. I have worked with my state coordinating committee on budgeting agreements. And as far as numbers go, I'm very proficient with numbers, having worked as a treasury assistant before. And that's all I did was crunch numbers all day long. So I solely have not been the person to uphold a budget for any organization single-handedly, no. It's always been with the team.
Okay. Tony, can you tell us your budgeting experience? And
well, yeah, like Dee said, a lot of my budget experience has been collaborative. The most, I guess, in terms of paid budget experience, I did work a lot with recruitment budgets in admissions, minority recruitment. We had a certain allocation for that, and also had for almost everywhere I've worked, I've had to submit budget proposals, some IT contracts I've had. I've had to, let's say I found a college fair for a new school that was worth visiting, I'd have to submit budget proposals for those. Definitely working in theatrical arts and video, I've had to create budgets and fundraise for some of those projects, or help the director fundraise for some of those projects, as well as the CJ Brinson campaign. I was the fundraiser and help that campaign with a lot of their budget decisions. I've never had to oversee a budget beyond the upper tens of thousands. So that would have been when I was in admissions, and I wasn't just overseeing it, but I was helping to make some decisions about some fairs and where we should allocate some of our resources. Over.
Okay, thank you. And have you ever had to counsel, terminate an employee or volunteer, been involved in other types of kind of labor negotiation or dispute?
Fortunately, no. Although sometimes as an organizer, I've had several cases of volunteer or activists of sexual harassment, or what could have been construed as sexual harassment. So I've had to, for example, one volunteer was touching certain women's hair inappropriately, for example. And generally, to resolve some of those issues, I would take the person aside, yet within the presence of the group, and say, look, are you here are you here to harm the group? Because this kind of behavior is scaring people away. And oftentimes people would generally stop or sometimes leave the group on their own accord. So fortunately, in general, I maybe have had to suspend some folks from some organizations, but not just flat out let someone go. Also, in the work environments that I've had, I've tried to always foster a pretty open and communicative work environment. So in general, folks who were having troubles made the decisions themselves. So fortunately, I've never had to make that decision, but I'm not afraid to if it's absolutely necessary. Thanks.
Thank you. And Dee?
Yes, once again, I'm not really an authoritarian or power-seeking kind of person. So I've never really sought out positions where, I had that control over someone's fate. I do believe that if faced with that kind of decision, this is something that I would consult with other people. I wouldn't take that into my hands single-handedly. And if there's a firm case made, there's going to be opportunities for this person to defend themselves or be able to present, what the situation or complications are that would be leading to interference with their job, to where they're not functioning as they should or aren't performing their duties. If they need help, we will try to help them. If they, hi Gary, if they need help, we can, we can try to help them perform their jobs. There's really very little reason to actually terminate someone, I believe, unless they're just not showing up or they're just, showing up drunk on a job or something like that. Okay. Then we meet with the other team. We say, okay, what needs to be done about this? Can you talk to them? And if you speak with them and, after repeated warnings, you just let them know this is it. Your third warning, we're going to have to come to an agreement that you will have to leave. And these are some of the things I learned in my undergrad too, as well, about how to deal with difficult employees that aren't participating and what might be contributing to the low performance.
Great, thanks. Welcome, Gary. I'm glad you're able to join us.
Hello.
I can ask you the question that we just answered, that Dee and Tony just answered, and that was really, have you ever had to be involved in counseling or terminating an employee or volunteer, or been involved in kind of labor negotiation, labor dispute things, what your experience has been with that? Oh, and by the way, we're doing 2 minutes, and I'll give you a 20-second time to wrap up.
All right. Can everybody hear me, first of all?
A little low. The volume's a little low, although I can hear you.
Could you guys give me 1 second and make sure that we can hear? So, wait a minute. Can you hear me better now?
A little bit better, a little louder, yeah.
I'll try to speak as loudly as I can about that. How's that?
Perfect, got it. That's excellent.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. Yeah, to answer the question, no, I haven't been involved in having to terminate anyone from any position because I don't believe in terminating folks. I think that you can find a way to reach inside of someone and figure out, what they're actually good at, and then exploiting that goodness inside of them. And as a green, that's what we are taught. We're taught as greens, to bring people aboard. So no, I've never been involved in anything like that.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go on to the next question, and I'll ask Tony, then I'll go to Dee, Gary, then I'll flip that around for the next one. So what's your experience, if any, dealing with lawyers or other legal matters?
Got it. Yeah. Well, I've had to deal with lawyers and admissions. We've had some issues in terms of that come up at auditions. It's sort of, we actually had high school students who are part of our conservatory. So quite often, as you can imagine, had to refer a lot of cases to lawyers. We've been working with a lawyer, several lawyers with our ballot access case. So I've been working with at least 3 legal counsels over the past year on our ballot access case. That's separate and apart from the law that passed that took our ballot access requirements dramatically lower. However, there's still some really unfair laws, ballot access laws in North Carolina that we're working to erase. I've also worked with several immigrant defense cases, and that involves a lot of back and forth with a lawyer. One of them, Minerva Cisneros. I was a lead, coordinator with Kim Porter on her case that received national attention. She went into sanctuary, and so almost any time she spoke with the press, you have to run something by a lawyer because it's the press will take something and run with it. So I've also been trained as a legal observer, and definitely have worked with lots of lawyers on several of the events that I have been a legal observer for. So those are some of my interactions.
Great, thank you. Dee, I'm going to take that question next.
Yeah, that's who wrote these questions?
These questions. Oh, wait, I'm going to stop the clock. I'll repeat it again, especially it'll clue Gary into. These were questions that were sent in from the delegates for the last candidates forum. So they are actually questions I had to answer when I was running for steering committee. So I just want to be clear where they came from. Yeah.
Okay.
And they're trying. Some of these questions are trying to reflect the actual day-to-day administrative work that steering committee members do.
Okay.
Go right ahead.
So I wasn't aware that the steering committee engaged a lot with attorneys, but I can tell you that I fought a 10-year custody battle for my daughter, so I have a lot of experience with the lawyers that came and went throughout the years. One of the things is to always listen to the questions they're asking to figure out where they're trying to go. If they're like interviewing you or something, but if you're hiring one, then you would want to basically present your case to them, and they will let you know if they're interested in it or not. I know that throughout the years, I surprised quite a few lawyers with questions that even they hadn't thought of. And, I've asked them, what is the legal statute or precedent for one thing or another? And they were sent to go find out because it just never occurred to them that when they were presenting that there's a way of doing things that isn't always, within a box. Sometimes it's outside the box. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I didn't want to cut you off. Did I? Sorry, did you?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, Gary, same question. Would you like me to ask it again? And if you're on mute, you can unmute. Because we're not hearing you at the moment. Gary, are you trying to come in and we're not hearing you?
Can't hear you.
Is there anything we can do from the tech end to help Gary?
Question for me?
Yes, question for you. I'll repeat the question.
Okay, yes, of course I've dealt with.
Sorry, go ahead.
Mute. Can you hear me? Because I'm not on mute.
We can hear you. You're a little choppy. Maybe just start talking and see how that, we'll let you know how that works. Yeah, we're not hearing you at the moment. Is there anything we can do on the tech end, or is it just possibly your connection? Okay, now you're, okay. Just see how that.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
Know how that works.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. No, now we're still having some trouble with the volume.
Can folks hear me?
Now I can hear you lower than before. It seems to be fading in and out.
Yeah, it's Google Hangouts. Actually, Google trying to close on me.
Now we can hear you.
Yeah, that's Google Hangouts, folks. That's not me at all.
Understood.
Yeah, that's Google Hangouts. It's not me. Google closed on me. I don't know if that's a connection issue. I don't know if I. Okay, me. Of course, I've dealt with lawyers. I work very closely with the New Jersey Education Association. We have five. We have under numerous traditional schools deal with lawyers stepping up in school because we felt we're being based. I'm quite familiar with how with them. Um, the Educational Law Center being one of the biggest lawyers that I can say that I've had to deal with. Yes, we've dealt with them on a number of occasions. Again, going back to our traditional schools, the duopoly of the establishment has harmed folks like us in marginalized communities.
We are hearing you, but it's a
And
little, sorry, it's a little
oftentimes
broken up.
we can't afford lawyers to combat the big time lawyers, but we do have outlets that allow us to be able um, to advocate for our residents.
Okay, thank you. So, Gary, I'm going to ask you that you be the first one to answer the question. I hope that we can get good volume. It's a little broken up when you're talking. But what is your specific experience in party building? Was it successful? And tell us how. I'm wondering if it makes sense for you to hang up and try and call back in again.
I don't know what's going on. I think actually.
Take out your headphones. Is that possible for you to do it without your headphones? I'm getting a little tech suggestions. Like unplug your headphones. Are they plugged into your computer?
I mean, I'm here. Folks can hear me.
We hear you, but a little still choppy. Although I hear you. You're using your phone to be on the Google Hangout, correct? So, Gary, I'm going to ask you that you be the first one to answer the question. I hope that we can get good volume. Just want folks to bear with us a little bit so we can try and figure out if we can get Gary to be more understandable here, so we can answer the question. You know what? I'm gonna go to I'm gonna ask Dee to the question while I see if we could figure out, or you could figure out how to improve this connection at all. Okay, so Dee, I'll ask you again. What's your specific experience in party building? Was it successful? Tell us how. Oh, you need to unmute, Dee?
Okay, I apologize.
No worries.
Hear me now? You can
Go
hear me?
ahead.
Okay.
Yep.
So I've had no previous experience in politics at all prior to becoming a delegate for Bernie Sanders in 2016. And that was only, I mean, I had seen something early that really a negative portrayal of the first Black woman senator and racist attack ads that turned me off from politics at an early age. So I vowed never to become involved in politics. And then the election of 2016 came up, and here I was. I finally found someone that I could go to bat for out there and do the phone banking and the door knocking and canvassing to try to help get into office. And so from there, of course, here I came to the Green Party, which I had previously not known anything about due to my being completely detached from the different parties and the world of politics. But someone suggested after 2016 that I look into the Green Party. And as a result, excuse me, as a result, I joined the Green Party. I've dug in with both feet. I took over, I was not really taken over, but I was elected co-chair of a CD that is very extremely large in Minnesota, but very red also. And the problems that the lady before me had, a year and a half, she tried to party build up here. There was just lack of interest, and when you got people that were interested, they would not participate. So that's kind of an ongoing thing. One of the people in my state from St. Paul has finally offered to come up here and help me to build the CD, and we've just begun our efforts. And our efforts are aimed towards not just looking for people who care and want to become active. We're actually looking at people who are like us, marginalized, discriminated against, probably not the richest people, but really want to see change connected. So it's a to be continued from here. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Gary, I'm going to jump back to you and see how you're doing with the audio. You remember the question?
Hangouts. I'm here.
Okay, I hear you. The question is about party building?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes. It's like your screen keeps freezing.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on, but
maybe it's better when you're off the video. You're off video, even though I know we all want to see you. Why don't you try it just audio? Which you just did for a second there, and I heard you more clearly.
Yeah, that's the question. And there seems to be a connection issue that's not allowing correct frequency. I don't know what's going on.
Can you take off video and just do audio? Just close off your video. Okay, video and just do audio. Okay, start talking. Let's see.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Okay, start talking. Let's see. Yes.
Okay. So can you repeat your question?
Yeah, and if you could talk a little bit louder or closer to your, but the question is, what's your experience in party building, specific experience, was it successful, and tell us how.
Can you hear me? That's the question. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so my experience in party building extended far before I even became a Green. I was an organizer for my organization in the city of Camden called Save Our Schools, New Jersey. Again, I'm a heavy advocate of traditional education, and I advocate on behalf of our traditional public schools. But to the point of how I became an organizer, if some of you may have read my bio, or some of you may have not. I got involved because I saw Bernie Sanders going across the country, and I saw him speaking to people like me in marginalized communities. I come to learn a lot about Senator Sanders and how he was chained to two Afro-American women, how he continued countless time after time after time advocating for people like me in marginalized communities. And so I went and I sought out Bernie Sanders. And once I sought him out, I also sought out an organization called Black Men for Bernie, in which I became the East Coast coordinator. Behind the scenes, we organized with more than 6 major organizations across this country, and we led more than 45,000 people to the DNC in Philadelphia, which ultimately led to them exit the Bernie or Bust movement, the Occupy DNC, the Bernie Revolutionaries, all heads of those organizations, Democracy Springs, all of those heads of the organizations, we all organized behind the scenes. And we gave the Democrats something that they will never, ever forget. On the fourth day of the DNC, we delivered a coffin to the Democrats with the new registrants as we pushed countless amounts of people into the Green Party. So when it comes to organization, when it comes to organizing, especially in marginalized communities, I'm a master at that. And that's why, as you can see in the state of New Jersey, we have more than doubled our numbers within a year.
Thank you. Thank you. Tony, you need me to repeat the question, or do you remember it?
I'm pretty sure I remember it. I started out working as a ballot access coordinator for the Stein campaign, a statewide coordinator. And when I was looking at some of the lists, I saw over about 250 people I knew, and that's because I've been an organizer, Black Lives Matter movement, Occupy movement, Duke Energy Action, the rights of the some Dreamer action groups. So I knew a lot of these people were on our list. The reason I'm saying this is there's no real shortcut to getting folks to break from the Democratic Party machine and also the nonprofit machine, which is really important because I've seen a lot of powerful activists who've been sort of swept up into this sort of nonprofit machine, and then they're sort of afraid to sort of speak out. So you have to have really working relationship and have a very sometimes it takes several years to build this rep with folks and build these relationships. And steadily, folks who from these relationships have been joining. As a Mid-Atlantic regional coordinator, many of the folks that I worked with who did come out of the Bernie movement have become full-time Greens or power Greens in their states. So this is some of my experience. Triad Greens, which we never area Greens, which is in my area, we've never even had a local before. We now have 5 regional locals. In Triad Greens, we have 2 Black co-chairs. We're not myself. One of them is a Black woman. We have 2 Black female co-chairs in North Carolina in our locals. I worked on the CJ Brinson campaign, which is in a majority Black and brown district, the poorest district in Greensboro, North Carolina, which is 40% African American. And some of these conversations that we've had to have, it's just a really slowly peeling away some of the fear campaign and the political theater that the Democratic Party establishment has wrought upon us and the corporate media.
Great, thank you. This is the part where we're going to ask the candidates to do a 2-minute general closing. Gary, I think we can reduce the feedback because we hear you in the last question if you either put your headphones back in or just mute when you are not the person talking.
All right. And I'm going to go now. And so one of the major reasons why I've stepped up to the steering committee is because I continue to see what's happening to us at the core of our party. To me, coming from a marginalized community, I see that this is a potential for a lot of us, people of color, people from all walks of life. If we say that we are the future party, then we must reach deep down into the grassroots efforts in which we come from and which we hold dear to our hearts to say that, hey, this is what we are. We're going to grow this party from the ground up. But we must do it with the people we say that we represent. and those people have to be included in the process. Part of me running for the steering committee was to offer ideas and ways in which we could utilize the talents that we have from all of our greens across the country into some of our affiliate states to allow them to bolster our caucuses, clearly bolster our caucuses to ensure that folks are being represented and that we are bringing resources back into our national. The only way that gets done, we say that we don't want the money from the corporate entities. So where else will that money come from? That money will come from those of us who are in these caucuses, those of us who are members of the Green Party, those of us who are registered, who can dig down into our pockets a little bit deeper. I'll give you a case in point. 200 Black Caucus members, just at $1 or maybe $5. You talk about that on a bi-weekly meeting, we are beginning the process of funding ourselves and standing up and saying that this is who we are, getting out there, back on the ground, synergizing ourselves to what made us get to where we are at now. We cannot go back against that in which we started in this revolution, that we told Senator Sanders that the revolution would not end with him. We meant business when we exited as many people as we did from the party into the Green Party, and we intend to continue that inside of Green Enter.
Thank you. Dee, your 2 minutes. Gary, could you either mute or when you're not talking? It will help with the echo. Thank you.
So, excuse me. I was one of the reasons that I'm interested in this position is because it's kind of like the nucleus of the organization as far as keeping things running smoothly and giving energy to the different branches of the Green Party that need fueling and support and energy. I'm really amazed to be in a company of these wonderful guys that have gone out and rallied up all these bodies and, different ways. But, they've gone out there and they've managed to do that. And I think that's amazing. I have to wonder if this might be the wrong job for them, as far as looking at the fact that, we just had an opening for a coordinated campaign committee members. And I don't think that this is a job where we can single-handedly direct anything. I think that this is an administrative position. I think that we work with other team members, and I'm not coming here to say what I'm going to do. I'm coming here to find out what we can do. I'm not here to mold the party in my own image or toot my own horn. I'm here to work with the committee for the best interests of the party and whatever administrative capacities come up and are needed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tony?
Gary did touch upon something that's very important that I agree upon. The future of the Greens, the Green Party, especially in the next several years, largely lies in communities and folks, the population who don't vote or choose not to vote most of the time. Some of those folks have, I think, the best political analysis in terms of the fact that their lives are not changing day to day and they see through the theater. And when we are speaking to them, we need to make sure that we're not sounding like just another flavor of the same poison that they've been subjected to in their lives. So I think it's very important, even if you have the best platform in the world, if you are not organized to deliver that and to have a discussion, these really serious discussions, and peel away the layers of corporate media deception, of all now we have an almost neo-McCarthyist kind of machine that is connecting anything that doesn't fit in with the establishment and the military machine as Russophobia or connected with Russia or what have you. So we need to, these are things that the powers that be are spending billions of dollars on attacking us and attacking anything that sort of goes outside of the corporate power structure. And it's going to take a lot of organization, party discussion, listening to each other, and then actually turning those discussions into actual a strategy that we can implement on a national basis. Yes, not every state can do the same thing, but we can certainly learn from each other. I'm here to hopefully bring more folks together. That's what I've been doing throughout my entire organizer career, and that's what I hope to continue on to do with the Green Party of the United States.
Great, perfect. That's fine. So I want to thank everyone for participating, and for those of you who have tuned in. Just to remind people again, these are our 3 candidates for the steering committee vacancy, currently now in the voting phase. Dee Murphy, Gary Frazier, and Tony Ndege. And so you can check out their bios and contact them if you have any further questions. I want to thank the 3 of you. I know that we pulled this together rather quickly. And so I think you've all done a wonderful job. I wish you all good luck, and thank you already for the service that you've done for the party. And good night.
Thank you, Gloria. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.